Welcome to DubLife Diaries, the podcast where passion meets the open road. I'm Joe Person, your host and also a lifelong dubber. Buckle up because this ride is just beginning. This podcast is sponsored by Volksmania magazine. Good times, great cars, awesome Volksmaniacs. Visit Volksmania.com to learn more about this class-leading VW magazine. All right, everybody, welcome back to DubLife Diaries. Now, this is going to be a special one because I got a special guy in the house tonight. Now, what if I told you that one of the most respected custom Volkswagen builders in the entire country started with a $45 burned up Super Beetle that didn't even run? This is before magazine covers, before SEMA's top 10, before Best in Show trophies stacked up all of his shelves. There's a 16-year-old kid rebuilding an engine that had caught fire just so he could learn how to drive a stick shift. Jeff Spearn didn't just build cars. He built chapters. From street racing in the 90s, where he admits he hurt a lot of feelings on Friday nights, to winning an SCCA Midwest Divisional Championship, from being featured in VW Trends and Hot VWs, to having a car totaled in a violent crash that would have made most people walk away from the hobby entirely. But guess what? Not this guy. He came back. And he didn't just come back, he came back even better. A 57 diamond green ragtop that became a Volksworld cover car, a full custom-built 56 called the Dark Horse that landed him in SEMA Battle of the Builders top 10, and through it all, he never stopped driving. 5-hour Ozark cruises, 34 years of building one of the most culture-rich VW shows in the country in Eureka Springs, and now building a 1974 Volkswagen thing with his daughter to be her first air-cooled car. How cool is that? This isn't just a story about Volkswagens. It's about obsession. It's about craftsmanship, competition, community, and what happens when a kid who just wouldn't quit keeps on building. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Jeff to the show. Welcome to DubLife.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Man, you are so welcome. Before we dive in too deep, because again, this is going to be an awesome one, let me get some of the sponsor shout outs out of the way. Shout out to Volksmania magazine. You guys know how I feel. Flyest VW publication on the face of the planet. These guys are awesome because it's the people, just like our community. It's the people. Check these guys out, Volksmania.com. You can use the discount code DubLife10, DUBLIFE, the number 10 at checkout. Also, shout out to Salty Dub. From the beach to the bay, Salty Dub is tearing up the coastal VW scene. Epic events and swag. Speaking of events, the next one coming up is V-Dubs over the Skyway. We are still registering vehicles for that ride right now. That's going to be the 27th annual, so definitely check them out. SaltyDub.com. Same discount code can work. Same discount code, DubLife10, only on merch, though. Last shout out, and then I'm going to get back to Jeff, is to Vera Upholstery of St. Pete, my buddy Alan Guevara. That's where Vera comes from. Guys, world-class craftsmanship. We're talking show-winning craftsmanship. His 73 thing won best in its class. That interior is on point last year at Bug Jam. Make sure you check those guys out. VeraUpholsteryFL.com. Hey, no discount codes there. All right, Jeff, back to you, sir. Back to you. What's happening, dude? Let's get this thing cracking.
Let's get going. This is exciting. It's an honor to be here with you. It's an honor to be on your podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you for registering, really, and thank you for your time. I do appreciate it. So your first Volkswagen was $45. Now, you don't really hear about stories like that too much, but tell me what you actually bought for $45.
Yeah, so at that time in my life, I was just a young kid, didn't have a car, was getting ready to get a driver's license, and we were growing up in a single-parent family with not too much money. And so I had to do something. So actually, I was doing a paper route. I had actually 3 different paper routes I was running at the time to get as much money as I possibly could. And the gentleman that delivered papers to different locations to my paper route actually had the Volkswagen sitting beside his house for sale. And I asked him, hey, how much could I get it for? He said, well, it doesn't run, et cetera, et cetera. It had an engine fire. I says, man, I need a car. I'm willing to put the work in. He said, well, $45, you can have it. So I ended up making the deal. Got my brother to help me tow it home and put it in the driveway. And I just started, diagnosing and trying to figure, what's needed to be replaced and fixed to rewire the rear end of it to get it to run. So that's how it got started. And it was my first car. I learned how to drive stick shift with it. Got my driver's license with it, and I drove that car to all around town and back and forth to work and to school, and yeah, it was awesome.
Sounds it. Super cool. Did you know at that moment that this was quite possibly going to become a lifelong obsession?
Absolutely not. It was an ends to a means. I mean, it was just basically transportation at that point. I really didn't have a clue that it was going to turn into this at all. VWs weren't really on my radar other than it was the cheapest thing I could afford.
Used to be.
Yeah, yeah, it used to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Honestly, once you get in the seat though, it sells itself, to be honest with you, and you become a bug lover for life after you start driving one. Um,
Amen.
yeah, yeah,
Now, your part of your backstory, you talked about working on Ferraris and Jags and Porsche, and you were
yeah.
doing this all while flipping VWs on the side. What did the kind of high-end restoration teach you about standards early?
Well, it was interesting because I was afforded a lot of great opportunities to get into that. Honestly, I started cleaning toilets and sweeping the floor at the place first, and then after a while, I worked my way up into disassembly and bead blasting and painting parts to then graduating into assembly and then working my way into getting to more full on restoration work at the shop. So it wasn't something I instantly walked into. I had to earn it, right? And I really appreciated that because if you learn how to clean the toilets for six guys in the shop, you can learn a lot from not only about people, but you can also learn a little bit about work ethic while you're doing it. And so that really taught me a tremendous amount. And we all worked through it, right? And I was able to get that experience under my belt and work myself into a position where I could start working on $10 million Ferrari Testarossas and enjoy the shows afterwards after we get done working on it, taking it to the racetrack or taking it to the show and really enjoying the fruits of that labor.
So you mentioned something exotic, so I think this is a fitting question. What separates the exotic level restorations from more of the hobby style or hobby level builds?
In this day and age, quality wise, I can say there's not very much because there are some wicked talented people doing some amazing things in their one car garage. So I think overall, it's the budget. In some of those higher end restorations, it's a blank check. I mean, you pretty much can do whatever you want, however you want. Where the hobbyist is, I think, limited probably mostly on how much they can afford to accomplish. Just financially support. Well, they may have the talent, but to get something accomplished, but just the sheer money it takes to buy the materials limits, I think, people. So, I think, the other thing that I think getting myself early into the exotics, like I did, I had a lot of great mentors, and obviously, without a father in my life, many of those were those father figures for me. So I certainly was able to learn a lot from them, not just on the side, but doing things the right way, if you will. So one of the things that I did learn is, even today, I do it the same way I do any Volkswagen. I do it the same as I would a Ferrari, and that is, every time I'm taking something off, I'm throwing it in a baggie, I'm labeling it. It's, everything is marked, everything's boxed,
Oh,
everything's ID'd. And, I'm teaching my daughter that on this thing, that we're documenting it to the T on everything, how it comes apart, taking pictures. So we know exactly how it goes back together. And, just building that muscle memory. So when she's going to do her next car by herself, that she's got this already in,
dude,
she knows how to do it,
I'm
and she knows
jealous.
how to do it right,
I, I'm
and
jealous that I don't have that kind of brain. However, I'm married to a woman that does.
yeah.
She organizes the sock drawer and the garage. All the bins have labels. And I'm just like, girl, where do you get the time or the patience to do this kind of stuff? So when you mention that, I'm like, wow, I really wish that my brain functioned like that, but it doesn't. Sure wish it
Mhm.
did, though. Very, very, very cool. Very cool that it
Yeah.
does. And you're
Yeah.
really instilling that in your daughter. Is she the same personality as you?
To a certain extent, she's a beautiful mix, I think, of my wife and myself, but she does lean, I think, a little bit to I'll say the anal retentive, if you will.
Yeah, man. That compliant natured. All right,
Yeah.
let's touch on this. You had spent summers traveling with the SCCA and vintage race teams.
Yep.
I guess maybe tell me what that life was like.
Yeah. So how we got into that is as part of this restoration work. You can call it racing first, and then restorations kind of filled in the winters when we weren't racing. So one fed the other. So same shop. When we weren't at the racetrack racing, we were at home working on the customers' Ferraris and Porsches and um, Jaguars, etc. But the racetrack environment, we're traveling 22 weekends out of the year. Um, you know, Racetrack to racetrack, leave on Wednesday, come back on Tuesday, get back in. And there's a crew at home and there's a crew that travels. I was part of the traveling crew. So the crew at home is working on stuff, getting ready. So as soon as you come in, they can flip your tow rig and the vehicles and service while you're doing laundry and sleeping. And then you get back in the vehicle and you're off to the next track. And that's kind of a fun environment, but certainly isn't the life of a family man for sure. But um, that was just a lot of fun traveling, pit crewing. Um, it was on 110 all the time at the track, right? Because it's pit stops and fuel and motor changes and body work if there's a crash. And I mean, there's just, all kinds of craziness that happens at the racetrack that you got to be ready for. So that was the fun of it. You never knew what you're going to get yourself into. It could be an extremely boring weekend, or you could be working 24/7 because there was a crash or an engine blow or a transmission goes out, etc. So it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Do you think that the experience and that time spent, do you think it raised the expectations for you on your own builds?
Oh, for sure. Because I think I built stuff to last or the longevity side. Because I certainly didn't want to. When I build it, I don't want to work on it again after I'm done.
Right. Let's touch on the 1970, the blue.
Yeah, so 1970 bug. So while I had that $45 car, I obviously going to the racetrack. I was interested in racing, so I actually wanted to build a race car that I could street drive and obviously look good at the car shows as well. So that's what I set my mind to do out at the age of 17, 18 years old. So um, I got a couple friends together and we just started ripping and stripping a car apart and building it up to be a solo two car, actually. And a solo two car that actually looked pretty decent. And at that time, I needed something that stood out. So I went to the paint shop and I just had the catalog and I just had them open it up. And, the first color I picked was that Geo Metro Diamond. It was like a metallic teal blue color. And then somebody came out with one of those and I ended up, man, I got to go completely different. So I ended up picking this GM Fleet color that I knew nobody was going to have.
Okay.
And so that's how we chose that color, and it was bright blue. You could see it from a distance. While on the track it was decent, while on the street it was decent. So Yeah, that's how we picked that color. And we built that car for E Prepared in SCCA Solo 2 Racing, and they have a 2000 cc limit. So I put together a 1995 motor, 82 by 88, and put tremendous amount of effort in the heads and carburation to get it to build the horsepower I needed to be competitive. And it certainly did that. It certainly did that.
Street racing culture in the 90s, how different was it as opposed to today?
Well, the first thing is we didn't have the internet back then, so that certainly helped keep it on the down low, if you will. The second is, I think there was a certain level of gentleman or maturity to the racing group. I mean, you still had your fair share of craziness going on, but where we would pick a spot and go out and race. At the end of the night, we would purposely walk the area and pick up after everybody that had left, to make sure that we didn't create an environment where we weren't welcome back, right? The only thing they saw was tire marks on the street. They didn't see everybody's trash laying all over the ground. And, today I see these street takeovers and it looks like a riot happened after they're done. And, you just feel so bad because they don't realize that they're destroying it for the next weekend, right? They're there for the moment. They're not there for the long haul. And, we were able to, go back to that same location numerous years in a row until I'll say things got more advertised and, wasn't necessarily kept up, and you just couldn't keep up because it got so busy.
Let's talk about winning. So in 95, you won the Midwest Divisional Championship, right? What did that mean to you personally at that point?
It was, it certainly was one of the highest achievements I have had with that car. At that time, it was the blue car that was finished, car shows and street racing it, as well as doing the SCCA Solo 2 stuff. It really felt like accomplishment, that I had done something. All the hard work was paying off. And there was a lot of great competition. And, I'll be honest with you, I didn't win it by much. There were Audis, there were, RX-7s, there was a lot of cars in that class. And it was a hard fought battle. There was a Carmen Ghia that, really challenged me heavily. And so it was a match of, the skill of a driver, but also the car really did most of the work, to be honest with you. But it was just a sense of accomplishment.
Did it change anything for you at that time? Did it change your identity or change kind of how you approached that scene?
No, not really. Didn't change too much. I think at that point, I don't think I tried as hard after that, to be honest with you. After I accomplished it, I was like, okay, now what am I going to go do next?
Right.
And go, and then I kind of slowly transitioned myself away from that. And then I'll be honest with you, started going car show full on. I actually tore the car apart, repainted it because there was tons of rock chips from racing and the magnets you threw on the side for sponsors of the day, scratched it and etc. So I ended up ripping it apart and repainting it just because it wasn't as good as it needed to be. And then I started showing it a lot more and driving it on the street a lot more, just day in and day out.
And you also met your wife at street racing, right?
I did. That's a wild story. So
Let's
you
hear
know,
it.
when I was 15, I actually went street racing to watch my brother street race his Volkswagen. He's actually the one that kind of got me started in this whole Volkswagen thing. He wanted to go off road and he couldn't afford a truck, so the next best thing for him was a Volkswagen Baja, and that's where he went with his world. And then had an accident and smashed the front end of it, and then ended up saying, "Well, I'm gonna put a one piece front end on it." And then he went, "Oh, I'm going drag racing," and then he was hooked. And so He's certainly got the drag racing bug. I've got more of the car show bug, but we both did like a lot of street racing and a lot of drag racing at the tracks as well. But when I was out there, I met her. I saw her from a distance, and I told my brother, I said, "That girl, I'm going to marry her one day." And I hadn't even introduced myself to her. It's a great story, but for the next few years, we were always seeing each other at the street races and would always find an opportunity to talk to each other. And um, then we rekindled our acquaintances in college. We actually went to the same university, University of Nebraska. And, we met each other in the library and saw each other here and there, said hello, etc. And then from there, I was also moonlighting as a bouncer at a bar, and she actually came in to dance. And after that, it was our love story. After that,
All right, man. Cool. Sounds like
yeah,
the chase. Sounds like the chase was there. The thrill of the
yeah,
chase.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was, and it's funny now that we talk about it openly between the two of us. She was chasing me just as hard as I was chasing her. So,
Yeah.
I
That's
just didn't know it. I just didn't know it.
yeah.
So it's a lot of fun and a lot of good laughs as a result of it. But
So
yeah.
I don't have a cool story about trackside, but I'll tell you, I felt the pursuance of a young woman. She pursued me when I was in another relationship. I was a manager in the mall, and I was working
Hmm.
at one of the mall kiosks, cell phone store or something, early 20s. And she had come up to me one night. She was just like, do you want to hang out? I was like, wow. I mean, that was pretty straightforward, but actually, no, I don't. I can't. I've got a girlfriend. She was like, oh, okay. Well, respect. Well, if that ever changes and you'd like to hang out, let me know. I'm like, all right. She worked at another kiosk across the way. So, again, several months and months passed, and we would see each other every now and then, etc. And I think I'd be a little courteous, a gentleman. Sometimes I'd help her with the big old trash bag she had to heave out at
Hmm.
night, that type of stuff. But yeah, man, at one point, probably 8, 10, maybe even a year later, she had seen me working late one night. She came up to me and tried again. And at this point in my life, I didn't have that girlfriend anymore. So yeah, man, that's where our chapter started, and we've been together
Yeah.
25 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we just celebrated last week in Florida our 29th anniversary.
Oh,
So
so cool, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Congratulations to both of you. All
thank
right,
you.
more congratulations in order. 1996 VW Trends feature. Tell me what that moment was like.
So 1996 VW Trends. I had the blue car. It had just come off of a fresh repaint. Completely took the interior out from the race trim and put a stock looking interior, full tweed, door panels, interior headrest, everything was tweed everywhere, carpet, seats, headliner, you name it. Back in the 90s, it was tweed was the thing, and
Yeah.
it had it all everywhere. Um, and while I was at the Colorado Bug in Denver, Colorado, at Rocky Mountain Motorworks Car Show, and then the Sunday they had at Vandermeer Speedway, they had a bug-in there. Um, I was got picked up for the VW Trends feature, and I was on the moon, man. I mean, for a magazine, Henry DeKuyper to come up to me with VW Trends and just say, "Hey, man, I love your car. Can you spend a few minutes for me to do a feature on it?" I was just over the flipping top. I mean,
Yeah.
it was awesome. It was an awesome feeling. And again, just another, sense of wow, this is what it's like.
Yeah,
Um,
and at that time too, that name VW Trends in the 90s, mid 90s. I mean,
oh yeah, yeah. They were doing really well.
yeah.
Had a strong following.
Ah,
Um, and
at that
it
time
was
too, magazines were everything back then.
they were that was my Bible, man. I still got boxes and boxes of magazines from from essentially the 80s to current. that,
Wow.
VW trends, classic VW to hot V dubs.
Yeah.
They're just a wealth of knowledge because that's how you got, your information on customization. I'd be going through every feature, looking at what they did differently and how they hid their wires and how they crafted this and where they put the louvers and why they chose this angle on the body line and, just picking out every little feature I could that was different and unique and thinking about, man, I got to do that to mine next.
So cool, man. And,
Yeah.
like you said earlier, you had mentioned, this was at a time before the internet. So,
Yeah.
and that's another reason why, the magazine was just so awesome back then for all of us. I mean,
Yeah.
car audio, we had Crutchfield and we had, the Lowrider magazine and just everything was magazines.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
fast forward just a little tiny bit, just a few years later, you got a hot VWs feature. Tell me about that feature this time.
Yeah, so in '99, I was at a car show in Kansas City, Missouri, at the Flamingo Casino, and I got asked again by the magazine to, hey, I love your car, love what you did. Can we do a feature on it? And I said, absolutely. So, once again, that feeling is relived, and it was just such an honor to have a magazine walk up to you again and say a different one, right? So somebody else now saying, hey, that's a pretty cool car, and I'm digging it. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I bet, man. Validating, for
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it was like mission accomplished, right?
I bet. And still, we're still in the 90s.
Mhm.
Magazines are still on top of the world, and now a different one, celebrating, in a whole different way. Do you think it's harder, in your opinion, to win races or to win car shows?
Honestly, I think it's harder to win a car show. Um, and I say that because quite honestly, a race is so performance based and it's very black and white. You either beat the guy or you didn't, and it's time based and etc. And car shows, even if you have a point system, they're still subjective. And you still got the judge's opinion on whether or not they like it or they don't. And so that to me, I think is, a lesson that I wished I knew earlier, but, certainly can give advice to anybody that's getting into car shows is if you don't win, it's not a big deal because it just wasn't your day, right? It's not because you don't have a bad car. It's just because that's not what they're looking for, right? And so go to the next one, and you may win best of show at that one, right? Because that's what they're looking for.
Good point. Do you feel
Yeah.
like there's ever tension between those two worlds, the show car world and the race car world?
I don't, at least not around here. In my sphere of, I'll say, automotive sense. I think this area that I'm living in, Arkansas, is certainly a blessing for a lot of automotive based things, especially Volkswagens. Because I'll be honest with you, whether I'm at the racetrack or whether I'm at a car show, when you roll in with a VW, everybody's digging it. Whether they're a V8 guy or a VW guy,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's digging on it. And, I can't say I always saw that back in the 90s. And I'll say late 90s, there certainly was a lot of separation
Yeah.
just with the American muscle and the Volkswagen mini truck. And I'll say the mini truck and low rider scene and the VWs kind of hung pretty strong together. But, the American muscle were kind of in their own sphere and you kind of were looked down upon. But, today in this environment, I'll be honest with you, we get a ton of love at these I would call it all car shows, all makes car shows in this area. It's just a fantastic time. You're welcome. They just welcome you, and they, kind of, honestly, everybody has a Volkswagen story nowadays. So, that's the other beautiful thing is
Yeah.
And, the guy with the tea bucket or the 57 Chevy's rolling up, and him and his wife are telling you about the day they had their Volkswagen.
That's right. That's right. That's another reason why I started the podcast, man, is because
Yeah.
everybody's got a Volkswagen story. And the more you connect with people across the planet, the more you get to hear about these, this culture and this lifestyle. Pretty awesome. But the nature of that and kind of where that came from, and the reason why I wanted to ask that question about tension between the two worlds is because I actually remember, the mid '90s, late '90s. I got my first Beetle in '96, and I remember the track guys versus the guys at the show. There was a little bit of a difference. The
Mm.
Volkswagen community was still super big back then. But to me, I felt like the racers, it was almost like comparing skaters and surfers back then. It was like
Mhm. Mhm.
pick a side, like you
Yeah.
almost had to. I see a lot more togetherness in, the entire Volkswagen, community now, whether you're racing or you're showing. So yeah, good stuff.
Mhm.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, let's talk a little bit about your accident. I know you got in a pretty bad T-bone accident that broke your transmission all up and did all kinds of it was pretty crazy accident. But tell me about this. Tell us about this wreck.
Yeah, absolutely. So this blue car that we just talked about that was featured in VW Trends, Hot VWs magazine, won the mid-div national championship. I was actually taking it out on a cruise night, and I was about 2 blocks away from my house at the time, and a gentleman ran a stop sign. He had a 70s, late 70s Camaro. He ran a stop sign and didn't even stop and hit this T-boned me at full speed and basically pushed the passenger door to the center to the beam or to the tunnel. And it was just a violent accident. Like I mentioned, it put the transmission in three different pieces, tore the motor mounts right out from it had solid motor mounts in it still from racing, tore them off the car.
Wow.
Essentially just totaled the car. I mean, it turned it into a pretzel. There really wasn't much to save after I got done with it, other than a few bits and pieces, to be honest.
How hurt did you get?
I had, well, I think at the time I was young, dumb, and didn't know any different. But I actually walked home and got my truck and trailer and put it on a trailer and towed it home. But I actually had a sprained ankle, and later to find out I had actually had a concussion. But you know, the adrenaline and the energy of I'm not going to let anybody tow my baby home. Put it on a tow truck. No, I'm a trailer at home,
Did it
and
did it slow motion for you? We've all been in some wrecks in our lives, especially if we've been around for a little bit. And I've been in several. But one thing I
yeah.
can recall about that adrenaline is watching like when the impact happens and you just are all of a sudden
Mhm.
looking around like this and you're just like, wow, look at my windshield cracking. Wow. Oh, look at that coming in. And you're like, and then, whoa, it's like this crazy moment of chaos, right after that slow motion moment. Did you have that slow motion moment?
No, I didn't because I was blacked out. So that's
Holy
where I
smoke.
figured out because a lot of people are asking me the same question: is do you remember any of it? And I go, only thing I saw was a black car coming at me on the right side, coming to my right side inside the car. After that, I think the next memory I have is getting out of the police car at my house to then get in my truck and then drive, which was just completely stupid of me to do. But at the time, I thought I was invincible, right?
Yeah,
So,
sure. Young and dumb, like you
um,
said.
yeah, and so I did all of that and got the car home, and I went up and put a bag of peas on my ankle and a bag of peas on my head and waited for my wife to get home to find out that I was in a really bad accident because she was working at the time. So, yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy.
So at that time, did you lose this car?
I did. The insurance totaled the car. I ended up buying it back for just a few bucks because at that time, they totaled the car. They didn't want to mess with it. So, for 50 bucks that you could buy your car back at that time. So I ended up doing that to kind of save what little few pieces I could off of it. I think I saved the cylinder heads. and maybe a couple wheels. And the interior, I think I was able to save it and ended up reselling it to a buddy of mine. And actually, he's still running that interior in his car today, now that I think of it. But yeah, so I just wanted to salvage what I could of, what I had as a great memory and an awesome car. In fact, I still have the dash off of it signed. I actually got Jack Seghetti in '96. He came to one of our car shows in Omaha, Nebraska. I actually had him sign the dash to it. And it's a lot of memories. I've got it hung up on the wall here, and I got, the deck lid is in storage. And so I was able to at least save a few pieces from what I essentially say is my very first Volkswagen full on restoration.
Sure. Sure. Did that change the direction for you for which way you were headed?
No, because I was really on the trajectory of building a show car. So that's kind of what sprung into us building the Diamond Green 57 was, I knew I wanted an oval window because at that time they were the coolest thing on the planet. So I definitely picked up an oval window and knew I was going to go full show with it.
Okay. Was there a reason or just you knew it was going to be an oval and that's what you wanted? You committed to it.
I knew I was going to get an oval. A friend of mine actually had it in his barn under storage, and he wasn't doing anything with it, so I ended up grabbing it for $500, believe it or not.
Oh, dude.
Um, you know, but again, this is 1999, so I mean it's 26 years ago. You can do that still. Um, yeah, but it was a great project. And in fact, they were, funny story, it was in a corn crib. If you know what those are, it's a big silo barn where they store corn. And he was using it to use it as a ladder to get to the top where they stored hay bales for the animals. So, yeah, I definitely rescued it from its ultimate demise.
Wow, man. Kind of a cool story for sure. Now,
Yep.
during this time in your life, I know in your storyline, you had talked about how you, in the middle of this build, you had moved. So you
I
moved
did.
from Iowa to Alabama. Uh,
Yeah. So,
yeah,
yeah.
tell me
So
about that.
I had that car completely torn apart. It was a pan off restoration. I had just painted the body, and I hadn't even completed the pan yet. And then my work ended up moving me to Alabama, so I ended up again putting this car together. The beautiful thing about how anal I was everything was already bagged, everything was already tagged, labeled. So
Mhm.
it was an easy transition for me to throw in a box. And then, only thing I had to worry about was safely transitioning a freshly painted car, thousands of miles across the road and
Mm.
not damaging it while it was on its way. So we ended up getting it to Alabama and really met some awesome VW people right away there. Really great friend, Rodney Cope, who owns Metamorphosis. Currently, I don't know if you know him or not, but
I don't
he
know him
does all those.
personally, but I definitely know of him, and he's
Yeah,
a
he does all those
spectacular guy.
VW giveaways. Yeah, does all those VW giveaways. He's
Oh
just
man, I love the mission of what they represent. He and his wife,
yeah,
just
yeah, for
amazing
sure.
folks. So let's talk
So
about that car, though. Let's talk about that car. That car wins everywhere, right?
it did. When it hit the scene, Chattanooga, Tennessee was my first car show. And it just lit that place on fire. I mean, it was just fantastic. It was like moths to a flame. I mean, we rolled that thing out of the trailer, and it was just everybody was doing it on. It was pretty awesome. And I say it was a group effort because, like I mentioned, we met some really awesome people that helped me finish it out. Because it was just me at that time, and I didn't know anybody and had no resources other than the Volkswagen community that was in Alabama. So they helped me put the windows in the car, and they helped me finish the trim here and there. So the minor assembly that you always need that extra hand. They certainly help provide it. So it was really a group effort and a group accomplishment, if you will. So when we went to that show, it really did well. I mean, right out of the gates, it won best of show, best interior, best paint, best engine. It was just, it was almost embarrassing going up for almost every trophy they had.
Oh, that's so awesome though, man. What a feat.
Yeah. Yeah. So first show right out of the gates, and the car did well, and it continued to do extremely well for that time. And then I moved to Arkansas, and kept going to car shows, and at that time things started kicking up. People started really coming out with some awesome cars. Met another great friend, Elliot, who has just a horde of Volkswagens that are all top notch cars. And, between him and Anthony Bell, who also has a fantastic car, and just three of us would just battle that car show scene. It was always which one of us was going to get the best of show, which one of us was going to get the best interior, because they were just all equally awesome, awesome cars. And that's just a beautiful, beautiful environment to be around, of like-minded people with like cars, wanting you to succeed just as much as you want to see them succeed. It's just
That's
good people,
sounds like the
you know.
VW community, buddy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what it is, brother. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what it is. I mean, it's just awesome. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just awesome.
So you also 2004 Hot VWs feature. Now with this
Yeah,
car, you're back in Hot VWs.
yeah, yeah.
Fast forward a little bit, you got Volks World cover 2010. Now you're getting a magazine that's an international magazine.
Yeah, that one was interesting. I ended up getting a call. They had seen it. I don't know where they saw it, but they ended up seeing it somewhere, and I ended up getting a cold call and saying, "Hey, I see your car. I want you to, I think it's going to be a great car for this region, an EMEA region over in Europe." And I said, "Man, let's do it." So they hired a professional photographer in Ohio. I ended up trailering the car up there, and um, it was just a fantastic photo shoot. My first experience with what they call that infinity wall. I don't know if you're familiar with one of those, but it's basically a wall that's kind of it looks like a skating ramp in the background. So it just basically white goes into infinity. And it's one of the few places that's got a 360-degree infinity wall. And they did a photo shoot there that was just
Holy
amazing.
smoke.
Just
That's
an
awesome.
amazing experience. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like it. Now you ended up eventually selling this car, right?
I did. I did. So at about the 10-year mark of, I'll say, exhausting all the car shows, you kind of get that,
All the magazine covers.
all the magazine
Yeah.
covers. I was just like, I started getting tired of it. And, at the 10-year mark, I decided, you know what, it's time for me to probably do another one. And this one I wanted to do really special. So I ended up selling it, and it's in a private collection in California today. And the guy's, doing some amazing things with it still.
Nice. You still follow the car, still talk to the
I
guy?
still do. He doesn't get it out much. Like I said, it's in a private collection. But when he does take it out, he does. I think he's taken it to the classic a couple times, but he really doesn't show it. That's not his scene. He just loves enjoying it, and driving it and keeping it in his collection.
So now at the stage and where you're at, like you just kind of mentioned, now you want to move on to a new build,
Yep.
right? So mentally, kind of where are you at now? Because obviously the industry, the community, every aspect of it has progressed.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, in my mind, I, certainly needed to outdo myself with the previous build. So that was really, I needed to beat myself first and foremost. And then secondly, with such heavy competition day in and day out with some really great friends, I had to do something to really beat them up, and outdo them as much as I could, humanly possible, you know, to keep on winning, because they're coming out with great stuff time and time again. And, everybody's leveling themselves up every year, right? I mean, there's something new coming out, something different, something bad to the bone, and you just got to continue to be badder to the bone than the next guy, right? So that was the whole intention of doing Dark Horse, was to show everybody that you can do a top level build in a two-car garage, and you don't need the production environment to do it.
Lots of influences at that time in your life, right?
Oh, for sure, for sure. So, you know, Type 1 Restorations, Buddy Hale, is a master in his craft. Just recently won, a huge award out in California at the, National Hot Rod Association show, this Schulnacher Award, which is just, you know, the La Creme of hot rods with a Gia nonetheless. So,
Wow. Wow.
you know, that just is an amazing feat in itself. But, he's historically produced just top notch cars. And like I mentioned earlier, I'd be going through the magazine trying to figure out, what he's doing and how is he doing it and how I can do it with what limited resources I have. Because I don't have six people working for me. It's me, right? And it's what my talents can get, and watching YouTube videos on how to bend stainless steel pipe and how to hide wires and how to, do this, that, and the other, just to stay competitive, right? And
Right.
then, another acquaintance, a distance acquaintance, we were actually in a car club together called Creations back in the day, but Dave Popoli, Pip, as he's known to most, is another one that's just super talented individual that, builds top notch cars. And, I took a lot of influences and inspiration from both of them, and in this build, because quite honestly, they're, you got to do what they do to even be competitive, and you got to do it somewhat better to even win. So
So let's talk about this now. You kind of brought it up a second ago, but Dark Horse. So another 56 ragtop Beetle. I mean, tell us, just I guess describe this car, because in a
yeah.
second we're also going to touch on, you made it back to the magazines, back to the covers, back to the best in shows. This one even hit SEMA. So yeah, let's pause for a second and talk about this 56. Kind of describe it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So 56 ragtop, pan off restoration, obviously. Started with the pan. We took it straight down to bare metal, but the detail, the attention to detail is, most of the factory welds were filled in and sanded down. So everything is just smooth as smooth can be, just from a metal standpoint. And then putting the paint over top of it just exemplifies that smoothness, right? And it's that clean lines, smooth looking. And that's one of the things I picked up from Dave and Buddy's work, is that all of those guys were doing that, right? Trimming all the nonsense out of the car, just getting it straight, basic, clean lines, and as smooth like a mirror as you can get it. And that's what we ended up doing. So stripped it with, actually took it to a place and had it completely acid stripped, then did powder coating. And powder coating works as a fantastic primer. And then used that as the primer base, and then sanded it, not only to 400 but to 800, and then shot single stage black over top of it, and then cut and buffed the pan with 1,000 grit sandpaper, top and bottom. So the top is just as nice as the bottom of the car, if you will.
Dude.
And it's just that, I'll say, going way over the top type of build is what we started with, and then taking that and moving it on into the suspension, cleaning all the cast material off of the suspension arms, the front arms on those things, they got a lot of rough edges to it as cast. So basically just get your grinder out and spend days and weeks just grinding on it to get it smooth as glass. So when you throw paint on it, it essentially looks like black chrome, but it's actually black paint, if you will. And
Dang, man.
yeah, so stainless steel lines everywhere. Hidden is most of, wherever you can, you hide the lines so nobody can see it. So it looks like, how do you, is it even stop or how does it even run?
Right.
Um, you know, and then you got to think, longevity wise, you're going to be taking the wheels on and off all the time. So, a lot of times folks would paint all the suspension parts and the drums, but, from experience, I knew that you necessarily can't take wheels and tires off of brake drums that are painted or disc brakes that are painted. So, we went with disc brakes, all aluminum, and just kept them, aluminum, clean aluminum. So we didn't have to worry about that maintenance of paint flaking, etc.
Right.
And then getting to the top, and the top side, which is the red of the car, is just equally detailed and metal worked to no end to try and minimize all the waves and the wrinkles that you possibly can. Learned a ton from looking at hot V dubs on how to get the door jambs right and how to get them settled and make sure they're equal. And, just all of that attention to detail is what brings a total package together. And then interior wise, I knew I wanted to do something a little bit different. So we ended up going with a split window, strife and brawn interior. And one of the things I wanted to make sure on this build was that the red that we chose, I tried to get it to match all the piping of the interior to the fabric of the ragtop. And when we started, I started getting samples and I couldn't find a color to match it. The ruby red was too light, the Bordeaux was too dark. And so what we ended up doing is, oddly enough, how we built this car is I actually started with the ragtop fabric and I found a red that I liked. And it actually is an automotive or a boat fabric. It's actually out of a boat catalog because no automotive catalog had this fabric, waterproof fabric for the ragtop. So we ended up picking a boat fabric. So it was one of those high end boat build fabric companies. Got the raw material and then had a guy locally sew it together using a pattern from another ragtop that I had purchased just to get the pattern so he could seam it together. Got the strife and bronze split window interior from Lenny Kopp out at West Coast. Because he was the master at building. Every top level build was a Lenny Kopp finished interior car. So ended up getting it German square weave fabric. He would only supply me a complete interior kit. He wouldn't just sell me the material because I wanted to make sure that the piping matched. So he sent me the piping that didn't match. The guy down the street that did the ragtop actually took every stitch of that interior apart and made his own piping using boat leather. That's the exact same color as the ragtop. And he made his own piping and then re-sewed all of that back into the original split interior. That is what makes up the interior of this car. So it's looks like a stock interior, but it is the farthest thing away from stock interior, other than it's the strife and brawn, the tan with a hint of red herringbone inside of it. And then the red piping really just brings the red out of the tan interior and just gives it that pop that I was looking for. So, so that's the level of detail that we're talking about going with this car, just from the interior. And then the body work. A friend of mine here locally, I knew the car was just going to exceed all of my physical abilities to paint, but I knew he knew how to do it well. So my friend Will actually painted the red car in his place, and he and a couple buddies, Volkswagen folks, all got together and we just started sanding this thing till our fingers went raw. So again, started with 400, 800, 1200, and then finished it with 2000. So it is, as you can see in the picture behind you, it's straight and it is clean.
I when I first saw it, when you sent me this picture for my background, I called it sexy red
Yeah.
because that, you just when you see that color, you're just like, damn, like you just don't see
Yeah.
it. You just don't. I don't even know if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, it's a custom mix. So I call it Merlot red, like the wine, but
Yeah.
it's the split between Bordeaux and Ruby red. So it's not Ruby and it's not Bordeaux. Many people at the car shows call it one or the other because of the way the sun shines on it. But
Sure, sure.
if it's in the bright sun, it looks one way, and if it's in the shade, it looks a little bit darker. But I call it Merlot red. It's a custom mix. It's a one-off deal, and like you said, it's sexy as heck.
Oh yeah. I mean, clearly you're onto something now because Hot VW's feature May 2017, Let's Play cover 2017, the VW Classic July 2021, Best of Show El Prado 2017, and then let's pause here and talk about this for a second. SEMA 2020, top 40 and top 10 in the European class.
Well, actually, it didn't go to SEMA because during 2020 that was actually the COVID year, so it was actually a
Oh,
virtual show
okay.
that we did, but it was all done via live. Well, I'll say live, but it was very much videotaped. And
Very cool. You got to love technology, brother, for
yeah,
where we
yeah. So
were to where we are at.
yeah, yeah. So we all got on and we're competing against each other via, I'll say, YouTube or video. But it was a really neat experience to see, industry professionals talking to you like we are here, walking through the car, with my video and just explaining the build like I just did to you. And, they're obviously it's interactive. They're asking, so what about this? What about that? How did you do this? How'd you do that? And so it was just really neat, neat experience.
Bet.
And then, we went through the top 40, and then obviously you wait for a week or two, and then they say, okay, we're going to announce the top 10. And, going through that next step, I was like, dang, top 10 of all the competition for Battle of the Builders in 2020 is just to be considered as an awesome experience in itself. And then you really don't understand who you're competing against until you get to that top 10. And then, I see Chip Foose with his Jaguars in the European class. Kindig is in the class with his car. And I'm like, man, I'm competing with some big dogs, and it was pretty cool. So the next round of that 2020 show was the top five, and I didn't make the cut to that, but just to be considered was an honor. And then Chip Foose ended up winning that with his Jaguar that year, and really neat car in itself. And obviously, Chip Foose is just a major player in building cars and winning stuff all the time, right? So
For
yeah,
sure. Huge.
yeah, really cool experience. Just obviously a little bit different than the normal SEMA experience, but just the professionalism of SEMA and just how they conduct themselves and just what they bring to the table is pretty awesome.
Now, one that we didn't touch on right behind your shoulder there is this coral red 56. Uh,
Yeah,
Introduce this one to me just real quick. This one looks pretty stock.
it is. It's mostly stock, I will say. So I ended up. I was looking for this car, the show car, and this one actually came up on Facebook Marketplace. And when it was very
Technology knocking again.
yeah, very early, and it was over in Tennessee. And quite honestly, it was at such a ridiculously low price. I ended up calling a buddy saying, "Road trip now. We're going to Tennessee. Are you in?" And he said, "I'm in." And so we hopped in the vehicle. I ran over there, and I couldn't hand him the money fast enough, and ended up grabbing this thing. And I think I owned it now 12 or 13 years now, and I think I've got probably 40,000 miles on it.
You drive it.
And it's driven. And so just in the last couple years, the hills of Arkansas. So for anybody that's not familiar with the Ozarks of Arkansas, it's hills everywhere. And so that old 36 horsepower was just getting wore out. And I ended up doing a Wolfsburg West Ocrasa build to get me a few extra horsepower. So it's got dual single carburetors with Ocrasa dual port heads sitting on top of a 36 bottom end, which is, really, really cool build in itself. But everything else is pretty much stock. It's still 6 volt.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, 6 volt, 3-inch white wall tires, and they're still the old, bias, not bias, they're just bias ply, gum rubber, just craziness. And, it's just a fun car to get in and cruise. And, it gets 32 miles to the gallon with that Acrossa motor still. And
Dang.
so, you could drive it a long ways around here. And, we drive it a bunch.
Yeah, so speaking of long ways, you talked about these 5-hour Ozark cruises in your backstory. Just describe for me what happens on these drives.
Well, so, at some point I'll say there's 15 or 20 of us here locally that have got Volkswagens in this general vicinity. And, we've got a group chat that we get together and somebody will have an idea. Hey, let's go to Petit Jean Mountain, which is just a local state park here down the road, but it's 3 hours away. So, it takes 3 hours to get there and it takes 3 hours to get back. So, for some of us. And so, we just get in our cars, schedule a meet place and say, we're going to have breakfast here. We're going to have lunch there and, dinner on the way back. And, there's 6 or 7 of us that happen to be there at the time. We just cruise. We just cruise the Volkswagens.
Sounds
Those are our long weekends. And then, obviously the car shows every weekend, whether it's the all make car shows or a VW specific car show, we're getting in. And if I'm not taking I'll say the trailer queen slash show car, because it's static, it sits low, it's not going to cover the potholes and the bumps and the curves, etc., like this, stock height one will. So
sure.
I'm mostly driving this one, trailer in that one, and enjoying both worlds.
Heck yeah, man. That sounds like a deal.
Yeah.
I'd like to have them both and take those options. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you got quite the collection. That's awesome accomplishment. Let's touch on Eureka Springs.
Yeah, that's a podcast by itself, to be honest with you. So, yeah, so the Eureka Springs Car Show, 6 or 7 years ago, I started getting involved in, I'll say, putting it on with my good friend Will.
You've been attending
Will,
it since '93, though, so you got a lot of
yeah,
history here.
yeah. So I started with the very first show. My brother and I actually made the trip. We actually didn't take any car. We swap meeted the first show, but I was there at the first show in Eureka, and we just fell in love with the area, the community, just the whole weekend, just creates a zen, just feeling, if you will. I mean, it's just a city that's, population 2,000, built in the 1800s. It's got just this old school vibe, and it's turned itself really into a tourist destination, but it's an artist's hub. I mean, there is so many artisans that call it home now that have their own studios, and the whole town is so welcoming. I mean, they'll welcome the Volkswagen signage on all the businesses when you're coming into town. I mean, they'll have banners out, welcome Volkswagens here. And I mean, it's a really, really neat atmosphere that, got me to attend it essentially when I was in Omaha, Nebraska. I attended it when I was in Iowa. I attended it when I moved to Alabama. I attended it. And now I'm coming back to Arkansas. It's kind of like in my backyard. So I attended it pretty much every year that we've had it. And now that I'm a major part of it, along obviously Will does a big part of it as well. So, together we kind of put it on, and now we're taking it to the next level. So, before I get too much into the weekend, we're doing a really, I think, a neat thing, and that's we're starting the next generation. So my daughter's starting to get into it and
Oh
helping me
yeah,
promote it.
heck yeah.
He's got 2 kids that are, certainly taking on the registration table, the t-shirt table, and helping with judging and, just all of that goes on to, get a car show together. And
That's special. It's special
yeah,
because I've got 5 kids. And
yep,
the reason it's special is because, you don't want to force the hand, right?
yep,
I don't want to force their hobbies. I don't want to force, I want to influence, but I don't want to force. I don't really have that many fans in my kids of dad's hobby, which, is since high school Volkswagens. But they come and they help me set up at the shows.
mhm, yep,
They help even with the podcast stuff. I do a podcast tent. I go to some of the local stuff and I'll set up for the podcast and they help me and they move muscle and I had one of them come to me probably just a few months ago and he was telling me he was going to trade his old fishing boat. He's got a little Gnu. He said, "Dad, I found this guy on Marketplace. It's got a sand rail." I went, "Skirt, hold on a minute. What? A sand rail?" He's like, "Yeah, man, it's all chromed out, it's exhaust and this and that." And I'm like, "You like the sand rail?" you know?
mhm,
So, I get glimpses of it. That deal never
yeah,
happened. But I guess my point was it's so cool to hear. I love when I hear when my guests say that their kids are into it.
yeah.
And this is so awesome. You guys are building a thing for her, which come on, man, it doesn't get much cooler.
No, it doesn't, and we'll get to that, I'm sure, in a little bit. But getting back to the car show, honestly, I've been dragging her to that car show, and it's a family affair, right? And so that's really the one thing I do like about Eureka Springs VW Weekend is it is truly a family affair. And we've got probably 3 or 4 generations that have now grown up in that car show. And
Oh,
it's almost like a family reunion is the best way I can explain it. If you
wow.
asked me, explain Eureka Springs VW weekend, which by the way is August 28th, 29th, and 30th of this year. If you say explain that weekend, it is truly a family reunion. And your first show, your family. I mean, it's just everybody just absorbs you into the family, and it really is an awesome experience. Not just with the town that's so welcoming, and all the people that are there as businesses are just excited to have you in town. To the car show, to the pre-show, to the, I call it a pre-party. So, I mean, we've got folks that come in on Monday before the show, spend all week at the area to just absorb what's going on because there's so much to do. And then, Thursday, a lot of folks start showing up to pre-party. Friday at noon, we set up the swap meet. We officially get the area, if you will, because it's a convention center and there's a lot going on. So we officially get it at noon on Friday. And that's when the car shows start coming in and start setting up. And then the swap meters come in and set up, and just the activities start going on. And then Friday night, for the anybody that's pre-registered as a vendor or a car show participant, we offer a free barbecue dinner.
Let's go.
So it's family style. So there's a table that's, 15, 20 foot long, and it's got barbecue, beans, and the fixings on the sides, and
Go. Lock
drinks.
in.
And everybody just lines either side of the table, and they just fill their plate and
Ah.
get you some. And Will, the guy that does the car show that I help with, and he does the barbecue. He actually has a barbecue place on the side, so he does barbecue, and
Oh, come on, man. So he's even good at
yeah,
it. Let's
yeah, he's
go.
awesome at it. And so, we get barbecue and beans, and we feed everybody, and then just the fact that everybody's there eating and hanging out and looking at all the cars and looking at the swap meet at the same location, and people are just rolling in and seeing it and absorbing it. And, we set up in a big circle and just have lots of conversation. And, there's times where I'm walking around just trying to get myself ready for the weekend and prepare stuff. And, there's 8 or 9 different circles of folks just talking and having a good time, and it's just an awesome, and we haven't even got to the car show yet. you
Right.
know. I mean, this is still, Thursday, Friday night, and, then the day of the car show is a completely, unique experience. We kind of kick it off where, pretty much, the cars are coming in, the ones that are, I'll say that show up the day of, and I'll be honest, not very many do, because the cars are, coming in Thursday and Friday because there's just space is so limited, and we can only hold so many, and many times we've sell out, and as such we've actually got a second show
Wow.
that same day, so it's just down the street, so we call it the Overflow Show. It's put on by a different club, and so the hotel show, the 34th annual show gets so full that we have to cut it off. We can't fit any more people in there. And so we send them down to the Overflow Show, where they'll actually have another 200 cars at that car show
Come
doing
on.
their own thing.
That is
Yeah.
so
So,
cool.
yeah. So it really creates a huge vibe for the area, because, you're bringing in, I'll say 600 cars that are Volkswagens,
Holy smoke.
to a town that's only 2,000 people. And so, if you think about
It's a
600
massive
cars,
event for them.
every car is probably full of at least one or two people, maybe
Oh,
four
dude,
or more,
that's a
because they're bringing
massive
their
thing.
entire family,
Oh, yeah.
so you're bringing in almost as many, if not more, as the population of the town just for that event. And it's just an awesome experience. So we kicked that show off on Saturday, and it's a judged show. We actually give out some pretty awesome trophies. I happen to have one here that I can share with you. It's actually
Oh,
a German
dude.
sign with a
What
pewter
the
top,
crap?
and we have our show logo on the front
Oh,
of it. And then,
sick.
yeah, it's ceramic beer stein made in Germany. So we
Oh,
have to
yeah.
order. Yeah, so we import those, and we have to order those, like around February, March, to actually get them delivered, made, and then delivered. This is the 30th annual, actually, so another version of it. So different colors, different shapes, different makes, but the
So
whole intent is German
someone's
stripes.
collecting these and they got them every year, yeah.
They do, and most of the cabinets are full of these things for every year that they've been, and so
Super
that's
cool.
another unique experience that we offer. We've got non-judged classes, and then we also have judged classes that we offer. So for those that don't want to participate in judging, they can certainly do that and have a spot in the show. And then, we kind of throughout the day, we're, doing giveaways. We do a raffle. The whole show is actually to benefit, if you haven't heard of it, it's called Imagination Library. It's a Dolly Parton charity where she gives newborn to age 5, kindergarten age, a new book every month for that entire period. A child gets an age appropriate book for free,
Wow.
and this charity
Five
supplements some of
five
those
years,
funds.
60 books.
Yeah, so basically
Wow.
every month
Yeah.
for 5 years they get a free
Wow.
book.
That's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's a huge charity that Dolly Parton puts on. But Imagination Library of Carroll County, which is the county that Eureka Springs is in, actually is the charity that we support, and that's what we're doing this for. It's the why, if you will.
Okay.
Uh,
Man,
but
what an awesome thing. What an awesome
yeah,
thing.
yeah, it's a really cool charity, and it's neat to see that we're anything we can do with kids is just awesome, right? And so
Absolutely.
the throughout the day we're doing auctions and raffles to help promote the funds to supply that, and then judging occurs. We actually are participant judged, so we have volunteers. So everybody that comes into the car show, we have a select group of folks that we're familiar with that we pick to help judge the show. I won't say it's every participant, it's a select group, so we pick a couple judges per class, and they go out and judge the cars, and then we tally them up, and then hand out the awards. At around 3 o'clock during the show, we do something unique, and that is we actually do a police escorted parade through town.
Very cool.
And so all of the
That's
cars
a
that
vibe
want
in itself. We got
it
we got a couple
is.
shows here where we would do police escorts. Not stealing your thunder. I want you to talk about this, but
Yep.
I know the feeling. I know the
Yep.
feeling of having that police escort and having the eyes on you and just having that attention. But yeah, let me hear your version of it. Police escort.
Absolutely. So they essentially shut the entire town down for us. And so just because of the sheer number of cars that we are involved in the parade itself through town, so we pretty much shut the entire town down and nobody moves except for the Volkswagens that are in the parade. Every corner has got a police officer waving us through, and obviously police escorted leading the way. And as we're going through town, the town has done a marvelous job of advertising this. And so the town comes out and they're lined the streets. The sidewalks are full of people. We'll have probably 4,000 people line the streets to watch this parade as we're going through.
Let's
And
go, dude. Wow.
yeah,
What
I
a
mean, as you're
feeling.
coming in, yeah, I mean, it's a huge feeling, and they're waving at you, and we're throwing candy to everybody
Ah,
that's we're
come on.
passing by. The kids are running all over the place, grabbing it, and you could just see, families have developed this, repeat attendance just to go watch the parade, right? I mean, it's become a part of their family history of let's go watch the Volkswagens in August.
Wow.
And so it's just a super cool atmosphere. But coming into downtown, so we sneak around town through the side streets of the old 1800s town, and there's Victorian mansions that are now B&B breakfast places for you to stay,
Right.
all done very nicely, restored very nicely, etc. um, so we're weaving in and out of there, and people are lining the streets. And then once we get to the downtown, is really the pivotal point of the parade, if you will, because that's where the businesses are. And I'll say that's where people are shoulder to shoulder. And that's where you get a couple thousand people
Oh,
cheering you
come
on,
on.
screaming,
Come on.
yelling. There's a second level. So as you
And
come into town, there's
I'm gonna
two
have to experience
stories.
this.
Yeah, there's a balcony and everybody's on top. There's bars up top of the balcony and they're yelling down at you. And the people on the side streets are yelling and screaming and hooting at you. And I mean, of course, liquid refreshments are flowing pretty heavily and everybody's having a fantastic time while the parade's going on. And, there's
Oh
just,
man.
it's just an awesome, awesome environment. And then you get back to the car show. So it takes about an hour for us to go through that parade and to get through it because it's a slow moving, event. We're not cruising fast.
Right.
And then as we get back, then everybody assembles for awards, and that's when we give out the awards is after the parade. And as I mentioned, we give out the German beer steins as trophies, first, second, and third place for all the classes.
So cool, man.
Yeah. And then, afterwards, people pretty much stay the night. We have a few obviously leave, but pretty much everybody just hangs out on the parking lot and, continues the event of just getting together and talking about cars, right? Talking about family, going out to eat together that night. And then on Sunday, we do a tourcade. So at 9 o'clock on Sunday, we assemble and we take a 3 hour drive through the Ozark area. And there's a lot of really beautiful places to stop. There's a 1 lane bridge. It's called the Golden Gate Bridge of the Ozarks, but it's a single lane wooden bridge that is just cool as cool can be to go across. And it's a great place to take pictures. And so we go across it, and then there's several lookout points of the Ozarks where you can see, several of the mountain ranges and
Wow.
lookout tower, lookout areas. There's a little river that has a beach that we kind of can stop at. So lots of different places for us to take pictures of cars, etc. And then while we are on that drive, we've made it a point to stop at a couple, I'll say, residences for older folks that I say are in wheelchairs or can't necessarily get out. So we actually stop and they actually bring the residents out on the sidewalk and we kind of take the cars through there. And for those that can wheel around and take a look at the cars, we kind of give them a mini car show for those that are involved in the tourcade. So
Dude, this
it's
thing is special, man.
it really is, and it
Special.
really takes those folks down memory lane because, as we mentioned earlier on, everybody has a Volkswagen story, and
Yeah.
you know, these folks don't get to see cars too many times because they're so some of them are wheelchair bound, bedridden, and they don't
Oh man.
in the retirement home, and they're just enjoying the best life they can. But for us to bring the cars by and show them what's up and kind of get to see the cars is a really really neat experience just by itself. So
I mean, I'm like just blown away, and it's making me feel like I'm missing out on something just to hear about it and
yeah,
not be able to experience it. Definitely going to put that on a bucket list for myself for the future. Before we get away from it though, because it's still fresh, I do want to talk about this thing because after the thing, we're going to jump into some rapid fire questions.
yeah.
So those are the fast response type. I mean, if a story comes of it, cool. But let's talk about this thing you're going to be rebuilding with your daughter.
Yeah, so my daughter, early in her, because we were taking her, I was pulling her in a wagon at the car shows from, basically birth. And so she's known nothing but Volkswagen car shows and doing the car show scene. And, people still remember me toting her around Eureka Springs parking lot at the car show in the wagon. And,
How old is
now
she
that
now?
she's 22 now, and
Okay.
people still remind her, I remember when you were little,
Of course.
pulling the litl wagon, etc. But she's, I'll say, didn't necessarily have a passion for it until I'll say 16, 15, 16. And for sure, first she wanted a Carmen Ghia, and then she wanted a um, notchback, and then she wanted a Ghia. Then it was back and forth, and then I actually ended up having a thing for just a little while, as one of the mini cars that I've traded for while working on all this other stuff, and
Sure, sure.
that got her attention, and she just fell in love with it. And she goes, "Man, I want a thing as my first car." So we ended up finding this one, actually just down the road in Little Rock, Arkansas. It was actually left on the side of the road, and a tow company picked it up as an abandoned vehicle and they let them sell it. So again, Facebook Marketplace to the rescue.
Wow.
It was posted maybe for about 10 minutes before I saw it. And I just called and I says, I'm on my way. I'm picking up. I'm on my way.
Yeah.
Call it sold. I'm on my way. And so it's, doesn't have a motor, doesn't have a transmission, but I'll be honest with you, it's a really solid vehicle. It's got great bones. The paint job on it is actually a hand painted camo, is actually what it is. And she kind of is digging it right at the moment, but she's
See it
eventually
there.
going to want to knock it in its head and do it upright with the right color. Yeah, there you can see the camera's moving
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. I can see it.
So yeah, so it's in complete stock trim, really great bones. It's going to need a few little pieces here and there. It's going to need floor pans, so that's going to be the first order of business. I'm going to teach her how to put pans in a chassis and show her how to do it. So we're going to strip it, take the body off the pan, and the whole intent is she's adamant about me teaching her how to do it. She doesn't necessarily want me
I
to do
love it.
everything.
I love it. Wow, how cool, man. How cool that
Yeah,
she got
obviously
bit by the bug early.
there's obviously some things she can't do just because she's 95 pounds wet, but you know the hard stuff of breaking rusted bolts and stuff like that, I've got to get on it and bust them off. But where she can and what she can do, she wants to be able to do it all and say that she did it. So we're going to go through it. We're going to
I love
rebuild it, rebuild every square inch of it, and she's going to have a hand in it so she can chop it up with the rest of them on what she did at the car show with the car, right? So
Fantastic. I love it.
yeah, yeah.
I'm sure we're connected now, so I'll see pictures in the future of what this thing becomes, and how exciting that'll be to know that it's going to be female owned and operated.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I love it, man. I love it. All right, let's get into some rapid fire questions. All right, these are questions that demand a fast response. If a story comes of it, so be it. I'm not going to stop you, but mainly these are quick response type answers. All right, you ready?
Yep. Yep.
All right, favorite year Beetle ever.
Oval window.
Okay, so favorite years, I
50,
guess we could say
56. 56.
56. All right, hard top or rag top?
Ragtop.
Rag top. Best engine combo that you've ever built.
1995 CC.
Okay. Carburetors or EFI? I don't even have to ask this one.
48 IDAs, carburetors all the way.
Okay. Static or air ride?
Static. Air ride if it's done right, but static is my preference.
All right. How about this one? Most underrated mod.
I tell this to everybody, and there's probably a story here, but literally anything that you want to build, any size, any CC, put your life savings into the heads. Literally every ounce of your dollars goes into the heads to make it flow the biggest, baddest, most flow you possibly can, and because that is where the horsepower is at.
Wow. Okay.
No matter the bore, no matter the stroke, you can make a 1600 with 12-to-1 compression with the right set of heads and 48 IDAs, almost wax most cars on the street if you want it to. It doesn't need to be a 2-liter, but the heads is where it's at.
Okay, man. That's awesome, man. That's actually really awesome. All right, how about this one? Street car or race car?
Streetcar.
Street car. All right. One car from the past that you wish you never sold.
56 convertible.
Whoa. Yeah, we didn't hear about that one, but wow, awesome. 56 convertible. Mm,
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
beautiful.
I kick myself every time, but I had the opportunity to buy it, but I was building a house at the time and I couldn't swing it. So ended up letting my friend buy it. But yeah,
So,
I owned it for about 2 seconds.
all right, all right. How about this one? Describe the VW community for me in just one word.
Family.
Family. Well said. In your opinion, best road trip destination?
Well, for me, the best road trip I've ever had, but it was probably with a Volkswagen related content, was Classic 2005. I think was probably my best road trip. Going to the Classic with the diamond green car and my friend Rodney Culp. We had the best time going there. The trip there was just as good as the trip during the show, but
Right.
the trip there and back were just bucket list items.
Awesome. All right, if you could build one last VW, and that's going to be your last one you ever build, what's it going to be?
56 vert.
56 Vert. All right, man. All right, give me this then. One word that describes your Volkswagen journey.
Always learning.
Okay. Last question for you. If 16-year-old you standing next to that burned up $45 Super Beetle that you purchased could see you in your garage today, what do you think he'd say?
Dang. Well done.
Well done. Man, that's going to be icing on the cake. Good stuff. All right. And that's a wrap for this episode of DubLife Diaries. Thanks for riding along with us and diving into these incredible stories of the people in the dubs that drive their dreams. If you love today's episode, Don't forget to subscribe or hit that follow button so you never miss an adventure. Do you have a story to tell or know somebody else who's living the dub life? Awesome! Reach out to us. You can find us on all socials at DubLife Diaries or shoot me an email. I'm not hard to find. DubLifeDiaries@gmail.com. Until next time, keep the engines humming and the wheels turning, and always follow the road that inspires you. This is Joe Person. I'm signing off. I'll catch you on the next ride.